of electric current in the electrochemical cell. In electrochemical cell, it indicates that there occurs potential difference. There occurs a potential difference between the two electrodes. Because of potential difference, electric current flows. So, the flow of electric current in the electrochemical cell indicates that there is a potential difference between the two electrodes. To understand this potential difference or electrode potential, to understand this potential difference or electrode potential, let us see. If I will take a copper rod and dip it in the copper sulfate solution, let me see. Let a copper rod, we are understanding the electrode potential. So for this, let us take a copper rod and immerse it in the copper sulfate solution. This is copper rod, copper electrode, copper rod or copper electrode. This is the copper sulfate solution. Copper sulfate solution. So, what are the possibilities? What will happen here? We will see what are the reactions, possible reactions which will take place. Number first, possibility is there. Copper dipositive ions of this copper dipositive ions may collide with electrode and no change takes place. For example, there are copper dipositive ions in the solution. They will collide with the electrode and they will come back and there will be no change. First possibility is this. Second possibility is copper dipositive ions may collide with electrode, gain electrons, from gain electrons get reduced. That they get reduced. For example, the reaction will be copper dipositive ions. They will gain the electrons and they will give copper. This copper solid will pass in the solution. This will happen. I will show the possibilities. Second, this is the first possibility. Second possibility I will show copper dipositive ions. They collide the electrode and gain electrons and form copper solid. Any copper dipositive will form copper solid. They will form the copper solid. Reaction. The reduction will take place. Reduction will occur. Now, third possibility is copper electrode may lose electrons first possibility is and get oxidized. This will take place copper, it will give copper dipositive plus 2 electrons. So these are three possibilities which we have studied. First, copper dipositive ions of a solution, they will collide with the electrode, no change. Now second possibility, copper dipositive ions in the solution, they will collide with this electrode, they will gain electron and form copper solid. Third possibility is that this is the copper electrode. These copper ions will give copper copper dipositive plus 2 electron. यानी this electrode जो है ये lose करेगा electrons. So these are the three possibilities. Now if the electrode of copper has greater tendency to get oxidized. Now if I consider copper electrode, this copper rod which we have dipped has greater tendency to get reduced. Let first we take oxidized. If the copper electrode has greater tendency to get oxidized, let us take first oxidation state. That is, copper will give copper dipositive plus 2 electrons. So what will happen here? I will show it in the diagram, this possibility. That means here this is the copper beaker and we have to put the copper rod. Now there is a possibility of, this is the copper sulfate. Now this copper loses electrons, gives copper dipositive plus 2 electrons. Copper dipositive ion will pass in the solution. So I will write here copper dipositive ions will pass in the solution. They will pass in the solution. So electrons will be accumulated on the electrode. Electrons will be accumulated on electrode. So electrons will be accumulated weighted on electrode. Now electrode gets negatively charged. That means electrode gets negatively charged and with respect to the solution. So after some time, now these copper dipositive ions, they will take electrons here. Copper dipositive ions. Copper gives copper dipositive plus 2 electrons. Now after some time, these copper dipositive ions may take electrons here. Electrons are with electrode, and there will be an equilibrium setup. That means reaction will be like this. Copper gives copper dipositive ions 2 electrons, and these copper 2 ions will take electrons, and there will be equilibrium setup between the electrode, between the copper dipositive ions and copper. So at the time of equilibrium, when equilibrium is set up, there occurs separation of charge. Between the electrode and its solution. And now at this time, copper has negative charge and with respect to the solution. So now at the time of this equilibrium setup, there are separation of charge between electrode and the solution. Now this separation of charge will take place and electrode potential is developed between the electrode and its solution, because there are separation of charge, because this establishment of charge takes place because of formation of electrical double band. I can write here, if the copper dipositive ions have greater tendency to get reduced, if they have greater tendency to get reduced, to get reduced. That means copper dipositive ions plus 2 electrons gives copper solid. That means now the copper dipositive ions have greater tendency to get reduced. So at that time, positive charge will be developed on the electrode. Now, if the copper dipositive ions have greater copper dipositive plus 2 electrons, now here positive charge will be developed on the electrode. So again, equilibrium will be set up, and there are the separation of charge between the electrode and its solution. This equilibrium setup होता है, so separation of charge takes place. Separation of charge. So due to the separation of charge between the electrode and its solution, with respect to the solution, there occurs a potential difference setup between the electrode and its solution. Now this potential difference setup between the electrode and the solution is known as electrode potential. You know, students, because of separation of charge, either negative charge is developed on the electrode when it has greater tendency to get oxidized, and positive charge is developed on the electrode when the ions have greater tendency to get reduced. So at the time of separation of charge between the separation of charge, a potential difference is set up between the electrode and its solution. This potential difference set up between the electrode and its solution is known as electrode potential. Now, why this separation of charge takes place? Why this is established charge? Because of this electrode potential is developed. Electrode potential जो develop होता है, this charge क्यों develop होती है? Because of is established because of formation of electrical double layer. Formation of electrical double layer. Formation of electrical double layer at the interface of metal and its solution. So we can understand that electrode potential is the measure of tendency of the electrode to get either oxidized or to get reduced. That means to lose or gain electrons. So we can say that electrode potential is the measure of tendency of an electrode. Measure of tendency of electrode to lose or gain electrons. It is the measure of tendency of electrode to lose or gain electrons. For example, first we will take that it is if we consider the oxidation potential. So oxidation potential is tendency of an electrode to lose electrons. Tendency to lose electrons is the tendency to lose electrons. Lose electrons. That means oxidation potential, it is the tendency of the electrode to lose electrons. I will write in the reaction. For example, this means, for example, if it is metal, it gives metal n times plus n times electron, Mn positive. If it is zinc electrode, zinc has the tendency to lose electron, it gives Zn dipositive plus 2 electrons. This is the oxidation potential. For example, it is hydrogen, it gives twice H positive plus 2 electrons. So this is the oxidation potential. Similarly, reduction potential. If we say the reduction potential, then reduction potential is it is the tendency of an electrode to gain electrons. Tendency of an electrode to gain electrons. For example, it gives. For example, it is copper dipositive. Here in the plus 2 electrons, reduction takes place, copper solid. For example, twice H positive plus 2 electrons gives H2 gas. So this is the electrode potential, that is first oxidation potential, then we consider the reduction potential. Now you must remember, students, oxidation potential is always reverse of the reduction potential. For example, if we take the reduction potential of zinc is 0.76 volts, is reduction potential of zinc is 0.76 volts. So minus, then oxidation potential will be plus 0.76 volts. So we say oxidation potential, you have read that the electrode potential is the tendency of the electrode to lose or gain electrons. If it has tendency to lose electrons, it is oxidation potential, and if the electrode has tendency to gain electrons, it is reduction potential. And oxidation potential is always reverse of the reduction potential. This was the electrode potential. Thank you.